He built a career mocking bad bosses, pointless meetings, and the quiet frustration of office life. And for years, millions saw him as their voice. Scott Adams wasn't just a cartoonist. He was the guy who turned cubicle misery into a global joke that felt a little too real. But by the end of his life, that same name sparked outrage, backlash, and fierce debate. Newspapers dropped him, publishers walked away, and the strip that once appeared in more than 2,000 papers vanished almost overnight. When Scott Adams died at 68, the reaction wasn't just sadness, it was complicated. Because his story isn't only about success or controversy. It's about how influence changes people, how the internet reshapes legacies, and how one of pop culture's most relatable creators became one of its most polarizing figures. And that shift didn't happen all at once. Long before podcasts, live streams, or online outrage cycles, Scott Adams was just another frustrated office worker. In the 1980s, he was an engineer stuck in a corporate maze, watching managers chase buzzwords while employees pretended to stay busy. Out of boredom and irritation, he started doodling on his cubicle whiteboard. One of those sketches became a bald, tie-wearing engineer who rarely spoke and never won. His name was Dilbert. When the strip debuted in 1989, it hit a nerve almost instantly. Dilbert didn't exaggerate office life. It mirrored it. The pointless meetings, the clueless managers, the feeling of having zero control over your own workday. Readers didn't just laugh, they recognized themselves. At a time when workplace culture was rarely questioned, Dilbert quietly said what employees were thinking, but couldn't say out loud. The timing couldn't have been better. As corporate America expanded through the 90s, Dilbert exploded alongside it. Within a few years, the strip appeared in more than 2,000 newspapers across dozens of countries. It rivaled legacy comics like Peanuts and Garfield, but with a sharper edge. Business magazines put Adams on their covers. Companies referenced Dilbert jokes in meetings. Some managers even feared becoming one. What made the strip especially powerful was its simplicity. Dilbert wasn't a hero. He didn't win. He endured. Adams once said the universal theme of the comic was powerlessness, and that idea resonated with millions who felt trapped in systems they couldn't change. Dilbert became more than a comic. It became a cultural shorthand for corporate dysfunction. And as that influence grew, so did Scott Adams's voice. But the platform that made him famous would eventually give him something else. A spotlight far bigger than a comic strip could contain. As the internet reshaped media, Scott Adams didn't stay confined to the comic pages. While Dilbert was still running strong, he began building a second identity online, blogging, live streaming, and sharing unfiltered takes on politics, persuasion, and culture. At first, it felt like an extension of his satire, blunt, provocative, and deliberately uncomfortable. But over time, the tone shifted. Adams leaned into controversy. He positioned himself as someone who understood power, influence, and manipulation better than most, especially in politics. During the 2016 election cycle, he gained massive attention for predicting Donald Trump's win, calling Trump a master persuader in a world where facts mattered less than emotion. That prediction elevated Adams beyond cartoonist status and into the role of political commentator, with a fast-growing online audience hanging on his every take. But with that larger microphone came sharper edges. Old blog posts resurfaced. New remarks sparked backlash. Critics accused him of courting outrage for relevance, while supporters argued he was just saying what others were afraid to say. Adams brushed off criticism, often framing himself as a misunderstood realist surrounded by overly sensitive audiences. The more resistance he faced, the deeper he seemed to lean in. By the early 2000s, the shift was impossible to ignore. The man who once spoke for powerless office workers was now a polarizing digital figure, regularly sparking debates about race, identity, and politics. Dilbert was still running, but it was no longer the main thing people talked about when his name came up. And then came one live stream that pushed everything past the point of recovery. The breaking point came fast, and it came live. In early 2023, during one of Scott Adams' YouTube streams, comments he made about race spread almost instantly across social media. Clips circulated, headlines followed, and within days, the backlash wasn't theoretical anymore. It was material. Newspapers began dropping Dilbert in waves. Longtime publishers cut ties. A comic that had survived for more than 3 decades disappeared from hundreds of papers almost overnight. Reports at the time described the fallout as unprecedented. Some outlets called the remarks hateful. Others focused on the speed of the response. Adams pushed back, saying his words were taken out of context and meant as exaggeration, not literal belief. Supporters echoed that defense. Critics weren't convinced. The divide was sharp, public, and impossible to reverse. Within a week, his syndicate severed its relationship with him. Book deals were canceled. Dilbert, once a cultural fixture, was effectively erased from mainstream media. For many readers, the separation between the comic and its creator had collapsed. Whatever Dilbert once represented, it was now inseparable from the man behind it. Adams refused to fade quietly. He relaunched the strip online under a subscription model, promising it would be less filtered and more direct than before. He framed the situation as cancellation by what he called a dying media system, insisting his audience was bigger and more loyal than ever. Whether that was defiance or denial depended on who you asked. But while the public battle played out online, something far more serious was unfolding behind the scenes. Something that would put the entire controversy into a very different light. By the time the noise began to fade, Scott Adams was already facing something far bigger than public opinion. In 2025, he revealed that he had been diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer, explaining that he'd kept it private because he didn't want to be reduced to the dying cancer guy. As his health declined, the debates about his career, his words, and his downfall continued, but now with a quieter undertone. When Adams died at 68, he left behind a prepared statement reflecting on a life he said he gave everything to. And that's where his story remains unresolved. To some, he'll always be the creator who captured office life better than anyone else, turning everyday frustration into a shared language for millions. To others, he became a cautionary tale about how influence, unchecked and amplified online, can unravel even the strongest legacy. Dilbert once symbolized powerlessness in the workplace. In the end, Scott Adams' life raised a different question about creators, consequences, and whether art can ever truly be separated from the person behind it. The answer depends on who you ask, and that debate, much like his impact, isn't ending anytime soon.